You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Myles Teteak, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans that just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting distracted by all the national sports media nonsense. We are diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season and sorting through all the draft dreams and drama of the offseason, which is just about over. If y'all want to support the pod, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network. Very important to add that on there. And you will find our channel. Hit that subscribe button for us, and it would do us a great deal of help to find other Packers fans to talk Pack with. And so if you're watching on YouTube right now, that subscribe button should be right beneath your screen. Just click it. Give it a click. It's an effortless gesture that means everything to us. So we certainly appreciate all of you listening, subscribing, hanging out with us every week to talk Pack. We finally have real football just on the horizon. I believe the rookies reported for camp today. We got the rest of them reporting tomorrow, and training camp starting on Wednesday. So we are just hours away, maybe a few hours, but still hours away from the beginning of real football for the 2026 Packers. We'll be done with all the offseason heroes from the Bears chatter. They can keep their offseason trophy. That's not what we play football for. We play football for Lombardis and Super Bowl rings, and that is what the Packers are after this season. So we were going to dive into all of that, position battles, who's on PUP, who's not on PUP, who's on the bubble, who's at risk of not making this roster, all those things, and maybe a new little crush going around Packers Twitter that is not likely to ever materialize, but we can have some fun with it anyway. But first, let's take care of some business. The show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and all the other tickets you could want. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. Of course, remember, support them local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, good evening, sir. How we doing?
I'm doing great, Myles. How are you? It's finally training camp. At least it's real football. I mean, it's practice, but it's real football. We can actually talk about things that are happening in practice, and we're not talking about lists or some dumb rankings or any of that other garbage that's been going on for months now. We are through the offseason into actual things that matter on a football field almost a time for games. We start with training camp, we start with practices, and yeah, it's a wonderful time of year. Training camp starts now, and couldn't be more excited just because I don't have to look at any other dumb rankings and lists for a while. I don't care. I didn't care before. Now I can completely ignore it because there will be, in just a matter of hours, there will be tons of tweets blowing up, and everybody watching practices will be telling me who's running with the third team offensive line, because that is incredibly important to me. Be following along to all those tweets, how many field goals each kicker's making, the hang time on the punters. You got to know all that information in practice, but at least it's practice. At least we got something, and it's the start of a new season. So finally we are here. Finally the offseason is over. We've made it.
Yes, sir. We have made it. And no longer arguing with Bears fans about last season. No longer arguing about offseason champ stuff, because it's not what we're here for, man. We're here for real football. No. So, yes, very, very close to practice. And I couldn't be happier to be talking about practice here soon. So very, very excited that the season is upon us and all the nonsense gets behind us, and all the Bears fans will have their precious little list to cling to when they start losing football games. It's going to be great. So first thing, we had a little bit of news come out today. Who's starting out on the PUP list, man?
Yeah, so a couple surprises, I think. So obviously Tucker Kraft is starting. I don't think that's a surprise to be expected. He'll be ready at some point in August, I would assume. I don't think it'll be too long, but that's fine. Like he's on his timeline. He's okay.
Headed for
Not
week
worried
one.
about it. Yeah, headed for week one. Parsons, as of we're talking Monday. He's not yet on the pup list, but all reports are that he will be at it Tuesday. It's just a timing thing because the veterans technically aren't reporting until Tuesday, so he will be on PUP. That was like the initial tweets went out. People were like, "Where's Parsons?" And yeah, he's still going to be on PUP. The surprise is a little bit, or the concerns, if you want to look at it that way. Aaron Banks, Luke Musgrave, Javon Hargrave. Yeah, those guys had missed some time in mini camp and OTA, so I guess it's not a huge surprise, but the fact that their injuries are still lingering into training camp is a little concerning. Now, with PUP, they could be on it a matter of days. By the time y'all are listening to this podcast or rewatching it for a second or third time, they could be off the list. But it could be sometime. We don't know. We don't know the extent of their injuries or what their time frame is, and maybe we'll get some kind of update from Matt LaFleur on Wednesday. But Aaron Banks missed a lot of time in the regular season last year, and even when he played most of the season, he wasn't 100%. So the fact that he's starting out not available already it's got to be concerning, right? Like I just it's not the way you want to start, because that was the whole thing with him last year was like if he could just have been healthy, like we could have seen what they had in him, but he was never really healthy until late in the year, and even then he was still kind of battling through stuff. And now he's starting off injured again. That's a concern. Like I just hopefully it's something short term, and maybe this is quickly forgotten about and he's back to practice in a few days, which would be great. Best case scenario, right? But this lingers into August and into, preseason game time, and it's just not good. It's just a repetitive thing from last season, which obviously was a huge setback for him and the offensive line. They need Aaron Banks on the field, and it's starting to be a trend that he's just not for them.
Yeah, and there are these players, and Marshawn Lloyd is one of them, that I'm starting to feel like you don't even exist until I see you exist. Aaron Banks, he was on the field a little bit last season, but it just certainly not enough. And when he wasn't good enough. The investment they've made in him is substantial, right? And that's the big issue here. And I don't think that if he was some run-of-the-mill free agent, or even, someone along the lines of like a Keyshawn Nixon. Keyshawn Nixon's not on a big deal. That's one of the reasons he was floating the idea of a holdout. So good luck with that, dude. He's not in that territory. If he was, this would just be like I hope he makes it kind of thing. Aaron Banks has the third highest cap hit in 2027. I'm trying to get back to 2026 here. I think he's up there in 2026 as well. Okay, the fifth highest on the team in 26. So he is a top 5 paid player on this team. And not only are we not happy with what we've seen on the field, but now we're not seeing a lot of it. And it's like, well, he was injured last year. That's why he didn't play well. Oh, well, great. He's starting off injured this year. Sweet. Not a great sign.
No.
Again, for the guy who's number 5 cap hit this season and number 3 next season, this is a terrible looking contract right now. Terrible. For all the people that want to screech about Goody not being a good GM, this is one of them that they should probably be clinging to. Because this is just looking like a horrible signing, even if you do see him play. And that's what's bothering me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good trend, but it is early. So before we get too far, again, he could be back on the field in a matter of days. Who knows? We don't really know what the injury is, what's holding him back. Maybe they're being cautious with him, whatever. But it's just not a good sign. Now, if he's back in a couple of days, it can quickly be forgotten about, right?
For sure.
Maybe we're sitting here in the middle of August and we forgot that he missed or that he started on PUP.
For sure.
If this lingers for a while, then yeah, you are what you show you are, which is an injured player. And yeah, I mean, based on year one, that was a bad investment they made. But with plenty of time to rebound and get it together and bounce back for him. But it's the offensive line has a lot of question marks to begin with, and certainly the depth does. So this is not a good start as a unit, and obviously as an individual for Aaron Banks. But maybe his luck changes and he's back within a couple days. I think the other, if we want to, I think Luke Musgrave is also concerning.
Big time.
It's a big season for him. I mean, more so, I think the Packers are moving on from him at the end of this season. There's not going to be an extension, but you got to show other teams that you can produce and be healthy and get on the field. So it's a big year for him, personally, financially. And here he is again with an injury and not starting on time. So, and tight end's a position now. They don't have Kraft. They don't have Musgrave to start camp. They're already a little light there, So Josh Wiley all of a sudden's tight end 1 to begin training camp. Who would have thought? So yeah, Musgrave's got to be available. He's got to be out there, at least on a positive side. It does give other players opportunities. So tight end, you might get RJ Maryland's going to get a big, opportunity, undrafted rookie. The offensive line,
or Lachey.
Lachey, I think it's Lachey. Yeah, he's going to get a big opportunity now.
Yeah.
And for the offensive line, your boy Jagger Burton.
Yes.
I would imagine he will be tried at left guard now, right? That's got to be a spot. So maybe he takes it and runs with it. That's the other point of this. At least you get some opportunities for younger guys, but concerning for who's out. I think the other big part of the pup list is so far, and again, we're as of Monday night. This could change between Monday night and when they practice Wednesday. But Zach Tom, Devontae Wyatt are both not on pup lists, at least as of Monday night. That would be a really positive sign because I was expecting both of them to start on pup coming off the season-ending injuries they had last year. And just, the Packers slow playing it, making sure they're 100% before they allow them to practice. But so far, they haven't been put on those lists. There's still time for that again until they practice on Wednesday. But if they're both available, obviously that's a huge positive as far as the injury news is concerned.
Yeah, that would be a big deal if those two start out not on the physically unable to perform list, and they hit the ground running in camp on day one. It's definitely what you want to see from Wyatt and Tom, two very, very important names in the trenches. I would say they're in different positions, right, than Musgrave and Aaron Banks, where it's they're not necessarily out there to prove something. You know what you're getting whenever they're at full capacity, and you want that for sure. You want that, but with some of these other guys, it is a concern. It's man, what are you doing? Yeah. And I will note another absence from that list is Colin Oliver. So he was one that was missing some snaps in minicamp, and I think OTAs somewhere in there. But Colin Oliver is not on the pup list, so that's a good sign for him to be part of that edge rusher competition that's going to be going on without Micah Parsons present. And we'll get into that. That's definitely one of the position battles I want to talk about because
me too.
Behind LVN, you got a lot of competition, we'll call it. There's definitely some guys that you want to see step up from year 1 to year 2. You obviously have DDS coming in. It'll be interesting to see where he falls in that group of competition and what kind of snaps he'll end up earning. But yeah, so the lack of names, outside of Micah Parsons, which we feel pretty confident he will be put on that list on Tuesday. I wonder how many others will be as well. That's a good sign. I thought that was a good sign. So overall, the pup list, not great, not terrible, no major surprises, I don't think, in the ones that are on there. Some of them definitely expected. And then, the others, hopefully it'll be a short-lived thing. Definitely Banks. Banks is probably the biggest concern to me.
Certainly.
For the reasons that I stated already with the salary cap hit. And the thing is, let's say this season doesn't go well for him. Like I said, he's the 3rd highest cap hit next season. So even if you try to move on from him, it's going to hurt. There's no easy way to swallow this contract.
Yeah, and I believe they redid some of his money even in the offseason to kind of restructure it, which was like a cat kicking down, like, and I don't know why they redid it after 1 year. Like, it almost kind of guarantees him another season in 2027, or it's going to hurt them to cut him, where they could have just left the cap hit alone. So
Well, I don't think you can get a
yeah,
trade for him either,
it's
not a good
oh no,
one.
no, not especially if you can't go and get on the field. He's dealing with these injuries again.
Right.
Maybe it's something short term, and by the time they practice on Wednesday, or even late in the week, beginning of next week, if he's back, no big deal. But if this is something that's going to linger for a little bit, or I don't even want to think, like, if this lingers into the season, that's huge, and it's just not a good sign, because he got hurt early last season, and it was with him all year, and he missed some time, and then he would come back, and he was playing hurt. Like, it wasn't good, and it obviously affected his play, and then from there affects the offensive line as well. So yeah, that was the most concerning one to me, as far as the guys that were put on PUP, or the non-football injury list too, with Chris Brooks going there. Was just
Do we know what's
same
going on
back.
with Hargrave?
No, we don't. And that was another one too. Like, we don't know what's going on with Hargrave. We don't know what his injury is. So who knows there? And I'm not concerned about that yet until we find out what is actually going on. But the fact that he's starting out, and he's 32 years old, maybe not a good sign either, but could be something minor. We don't know. But he was healthy enough last year for Minnesota, so it's not like something he's maybe carrying. Could have got hurt in OTAs or minicamp. But yeah, there was nothing really on Hargrave.
Yeah, I'm looking for reports online. I don't see much. So yeah, that's concerning as well. To your point, it could be nothing, could be something. But there haven't been any reports of him getting an injury in participation in OTAs or anything like that. So hopefully it's a small thing, small precaution, maybe even some rest to start training camp. Who knows? Sometimes they'll do that with the older bodies. But yeah, very, very interesting on that one. I would really hate to see us having to start having that conversation about Hargrave of, could have been good, but he was held back by injuries. Like, man, am I sick of that storyline or what? Like, you want to see these guys play to their full potential. And obviously this is the NFL. You're not going to get to see that. I mean, you already see what's coming out of the Carolina training camp. What's his name? He got
pass
hurt
rusher
for his ACL. Yeah.
The first day too.
First day.
That's brutal.
You just don't want to see that. But there, what do you do? How do you stop that? I don't think there's any way to do that. So, the good thing, and this is where, you never know what they're up to. Maybe it is some rest time for them and also some opportunity to get a look at some of the younger guys. But a guy like McClellan should benefit from Hargrave being on the side, getting those early snaps in camp, and having Wyatt not on the PUP list. I think that's good. You got, at least one of your vets out there that's leading the way. That definitely helps. But nonetheless, the PUP list is not not great news, not terrible news. It's just kind of, it's one of those things where you're like, all right, couple concerns, couple expected things. Let's see how this goes. But definitely a couple names that I think impact the most important position battles. So, that I think is kind of the biggest topic before training camp gets started is, who are in these top training camp position battles. There's some obvious ones. Like we talked about, I already started to tease a little bit the pass rusher group. I think the cornerback group is probably in there. And I'm actually really interested in the running back group. If you've got Josh Jacobs on the field, there's still questions around him, but as long as he's on the field, I think he's still clear-cut number one. But after that, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. What's Marshawn Lloyd going to look like? Chris Brooks starts on the non-football injury list. We aren't sure about what that is. And then you got Damian Martinez, I think has been kind of a little bit of a quiet favorite after Chris Brooks. And I certainly agree with that. I'm a big Damian Martinez fan, having Gotten to watch him play a little bit in high school. Shout out to Nick Ola, offensive coordinator out there at Louisville High School. But yeah, I've got a little soft spot in my heart for Damian Martinez. I thought he had a great college career. Would love to see what he can do. But I think that there's some interesting battles. Some of them are in the bottom half of the depth chart, but nonetheless very important because, like we're talking about, these injuries happen, and these players have to play whether you like it or not. So you might as well start to get a good look at some of these guys. But what are the top position battles you got your eye on?
For me, it starts with edge rusher, and we know one spot's going to be Lucas Van Ness. Now we can talk about Lucas Van Ness and, does he break out? Can he stay healthy? What do they have in him? We still don't know this far into his career, but he's going to be one of the guys. Like, it's just, he's going to be, no matter what, to start the season. Obviously, production from there will tell a lot, but opposite Lucas Van Ness, what are they doing until Micah Parsons gets back, right? And I would think maybe Sorrell starts with that spot, but it's not his to just, etched in stone or anything like that.
No, not at all.
Brenton Cox will be in the mix. Danae Dennis Sutton will be in the mix. Colin Oliver will be in the mix. Maybe there's an outside addition, who knows? But yeah, to me, it's how does it shake out at pass rusher, at edge rusher? And I don't feel good about it without Micah Parsons. There's a lot of unproven players. Now, they have some potential in them for sure, but we just haven't seen it. And they're going to be counted on, like, not just to be complimentary to Micah Parsons, but like they have to carry the load for this defense, for the pass rush of this defense until Micah gets back, whenever that might be. Now, you might get pass rush from your interior guys. Let's hope Wyatt has a big year and can stay healthy. Hargrave, if he can stay on the field and have a bounce back season for them, certainly. Maybe we see Adrian Cooper more involved, pressuring the quarterback, but you still need a lot out of these edge rushers, and they are completely unproven. There's been flashes from Sorrell. There was flashes a couple years ago in 2024 from Brenton Cox when he got his opportunity after Preston Smith had been traded. We didn't see Colin Oliver other than in that week 18, which was essentially a preseason game against Minnesota. Dennis Sutton's a rookie. Like, you don't know what you're getting with these guys, and you're hoping for growth, and you're hoping for like what they saw in them as prospects when they drafted them. But we really don't know. So to me, how that all shakes out, and training camp obviously is going to be huge. Those guys are going to play preseason games. That's going to be important as well. But like, does anybody step up? Let alone having a breakout. Breakout seasons would be great. I think Van Ness is capable of that. Whether he has his breakout season, I'm very skeptical, but he's capable of that. But like, the guys just at least step up and earn the playing time and take a hold of a job or a role and give them something as pass rushers. That to me is like number one. And there's a lot of position battles, I think, on this team, but like, the pass rush is going to affect everything on their defense. It's going to dictate what Jonathan Gannon can and can't do as far as a defensive coordinator, like what he can call. Because if he's not getting a pass rush, you throw a lot of the playbook out the window, and it's going to really tie a hand behind his back as a coordinator. So who's going to be the guys? Like, who's it going to be? I don't know. And I think camp is going to give us some ideas, hopefully, as far as, are any of these guys ready to take on the starter responsibility, to play a big part, and to grab hold of some kind of role on this defense.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. You don't really want to see uncertainty with this. I think you want to see somebody take this thing and run with it. Now, uncertainty could certainly come from all the guys being good. It's just very rare that that's the case. That's usually not the problem you have. Usually the problem you have is nobody is really taking it and running with it. Everybody's just sort of flash here, flash there, inconsistent, and you just don't want that. I think what you want to see is somebody step up here, whether it's Sorrell or any of the others, and be a dominant force on the other side of LVN, who better be a dominant force. The LVN is the one who's like, if he's mediocre and not really taking it and running with it, then we got real problems. But no, I would love to see like a Sorrell take this and run with it. I would love to see just definitive, okay, that's your guy, and everybody else is just sort of on a different level that's not that level. Because then when Micah comes back and you've got three, just dogs, that's a good problem to have. That's what you want. You want a rotation of guys that have to be on the field. You want the problem to be figuring out how these guys get on the field all at the same time. So that's what I'm looking for out of that position battles. I want to see dominance from somebody. I don't really care who it is. I'd like it to be Sorrell. I think, his story is a fun one, and he sounds like he's got the intangibles. But whoever it is that may run away with it, let's see somebody run away with it.
That would be perfect, right? Like somebody's at least got to grab a hold of that, because we know Van Ness is one spot, right? But like somebody else has to grab a hold of it. It can't just be, well, it's going to be Sorrell because he was the 4th round pick from last year, so we're going to run with him. Like it's got to be, no, Sorrell's the guy because he earned it, and he had a really good training camp in preseason, and we think he's ready. He's made the 2nd-year jump, and maybe he will. He showed flashes last year for sure, but it was very limited.
Right.
We don't know. And I think Brenton Cox, even, like it kind of gets forgotten because last season was basically a lost year for him with his injury that kept him out almost the entire season. But 2024, once he was given that opportunity after they traded Preston Smith away, he was pretty good for him. Like he had a good run there as a pass rusher. Now,
yes,
he's not ever going to be, a starting caliber every week edge rusher. Like he need to be like a rotational guy, but he gave him pass rush productivity that they were lacking from Preston Smith at the time, and produced nicely for him down the stretch. Like he gave him some good football. So if he can get back to that level or even a little past that, that would really be helpful. That would be a nice boost for the pass rush until they can get Micah back. And he's at least shown that. Now it was a couple years ago, but it's there. And now that he's hopefully past the injury issue that he dealt with last year, maybe he can get back to that point.
Well, and he's one that I think it's easy to forget his pedigree. He was a pretty damn good player at Florida. And the reason that he slid, and I believe was undrafted, was some character questions, which those don't appear to have been present in Green Bay, right? Since he's come to Green Bay, he seems like a pretty quiet citizen. It was never a talent issue with him. So he's got the talent, he's got the pedigree, to step in there and be maybe that what name that I'm blanking on, the guy that we lost this offseason to the Jets.
Oh, Enigbari,
kind of an Enigbari quality pass rusher, a guy who can give you those snaps when you need them. Maybe he's not necessarily the full-time number one starter, but I do see him as that caliber as Enigbari if he can stay healthy. But it's going to be an interesting battle, and the success of the defense is going to rely heavily on that battle being successful, whoever it is. I wouldn't mind seeing Colin Oliver make a splash as a pass rusher. I don't know if he can hold his own full time against the run or in coverage, but I know he's got that quick twitchness that's similar to Micah Parsons. So if he can even be that similar skill set as Micah Parsons, while Parsons is not there, I think that would be a win. Because the rest of these guys are kind of the bigger, heavier type pass rusher. You're kind of like Dennis Sutton, just 6'5", almost 260. Brenton Cox, 250. A lot of these guys are 250 and above. Luke Van Ness at 270. So, I think it'd be interesting to see if Colin Oliver can hold that up and become that guy. Because, again, if he can be that and he can be successful as that, man, things get to be a lot of fun when you can have Micah Parsons on the field with him and have two guys that are that quick twitch pass rush that the offensive line has to deal with. that becomes a real good situation to be in, a really bad problem for opposing offensive lines. So, I look at this and the potential is high, but I think the floor is also low, which can be scary. I think the floor here could be pretty low. Things could go wrong very quickly, and you don't want to see that happen. So this one will be a big one. Got to keep our eyes on it. We'll certainly be covering it throughout training camp on the pod. Another one that I think we'll have a really close eye on is going to be the cornerback room. And somebody who has been pushing for snaps the last few years, Kamal Hayden, starts on the PUP list. So it's like, oh boy, not a good place for you to start, especially when the top of the depth chart is going to be competitive. I don't think that there's any foregone conclusions on Valentine, Cisse, St. Just. It seems like Nixon is CB1, but I wouldn't even lock him in, because if St. Just comes in and he had a really good season last year, I think he could absolutely win that CB1 spot. So there's going to be a lot to be determined in the cornerback room. Starting off the season on PUP is not a great place to be for somebody who's pushing for those snaps. And another one who I think will have something to say about that is Damani Jackson. He's certainly going to be in there trying to take snaps, and anybody who's not out there actively getting those reps is definitely losing. You're taking steps backwards. So I'm very, very interested to see how this one plays out. I'm very excited to see how Brandon Cisse looks and what he can show early on, and where he can, start the season out. He's not going to, I don't think, start out as CB1, right? That'd be a really neat problem to have if he comes out and is just sensational. But I certainly think he can press for that CB2 job. And, it could get very interesting very quickly, I think. So there's going to be a lot of competition there.
Yeah, I think there will be. I'm kind of at the spot now with Cisse where I think he's going to follow the track in Jair when Jair was a rookie, in that Jair didn't start right away. It took him until the season went along, and however many games it was before they started playing him more and starting him. And I think that's more likely the path for Cisse than like he's going to be week one starting against the Vikings. Like I don't think it's going to happen. Now, if it does, cool. Like that means he earned it most likely, or maybe there's injuries ahead of him, which you don't want to see. But like, if he earns it and he's your week one starter, cool. I'm fully on board with that. I would love to see it, but I think it's going to take him time and development and getting used to NFL receivers and speed, and just how much more advanced everybody is, quarterbacks, receivers that you're covering, the schemes, like everything. It's going to take him a while to get up to speed. I think they slow play it, but like as the season goes on, eventually his playing time is going to increase as it goes along, and eventually he becomes a starter at some point during the season. I just don't think it's going to be week one. I think the competition's going to largely be dictated by how Carrington Valentine looks. Like if he looks like the same cornerback we saw at the end of last year, there's going to be a lot of competition. St. Just might take his job, or Cisse may take his job. But if he looks improved and more comfortable in the scheme and his tackling is better, now we won't know that until he's tackling live players, which, it could be the preseason. Maybe they hold him out in the preseason. Who knows? But like, if he at least looks better, maybe the ball production's better, maybe he's a better fit for the scheme. I think he's the guy. Like, I think he will be a starter. I think Nixon will be a starter. I think St. Just is there to improve the depth, to play special teams, and to give them a guy with, a lot of experience playing. So he's in the room in case, somebody gets hurt, or, you need to supplant somebody who's not playing well. Like, he gives them better depth. But I think if Valentine is improved, he's the starter. Nixon's the starter. I don't like it, but I don't see them. I don't see a way that Nixon's not a starting cornerback week one for them unless he's injured. Like they like him more than people outside the building, obviously. And I just don't think Cisse will be up to that standard to be able to replace Nixon yet. But I think the competition will be good. You mentioned Haddon starting on PUP, and that's not a good sign. He had that bad ankle injury in the Ravens game last year, so it's taken him a while to come back from that. He's in competition with Damani Jackson, I think, they both may make the team, but it might just be between the two of them. So yeah, he needs to get back on the field and show something, because it was literally that game where they were starting to play him over Valentine because Valentine's tackling was so poor. And it looked like, all right, Haddon's getting his playing time. Maybe he can go out there and run with it and take Valentine's spot. And then he gets hurt in the Ravens game, and that was it for him. So if he can bounce back from that ankle injury, he's at least shown flashes to be around this team for the last couple of years. And he's an interesting guy to watch in the preseason if he can get back on the field and be healthy, and be fighting for, a depth spot on the roster.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we got our Showers chiming in here. Good to have you with us, sir. It says Valentine's demise is in no way guaranteed. He is a very decent man coverage corner. I like him better than Nixon. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It might be an easy thing to assume that his position is the one that's up for grabs because it's hard to envision Nixon falling out of that spot. While we don't like him, it doesn't seem like the coaches feel as much the same way. So it seems like maybe that CB2 spot is more up for grabs. I mean, yeah, if Valentine comes out and plays, the better side of football that we've seen him play, because he has had some good moments. Yeah, he could very well lock up that CB2 job and do it securely.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that there's anything guaranteed about him falling out or anything like that, but I would say the seat's warm. Like there's some heat on the seat. He's got to take a step forward, because if he takes a step backwards, there are people there chomping at the bit for his job. St. Juste is probably the biggest threat to him right away. Having had a pretty good season last year, he's got a few more years in the league. A little bit bigger, at 6'3", 200 versus Valentine 6 foot 190. So yeah, I think that there's a little heat there, but I wouldn't say it's a guarantee that Valentine's falling out of favor or, he's on his way out. I wouldn't even consider him on the bubble in any way. I think, he makes this team and definitely has a good shot to take a step forward and be a really legitimate CB2.
Yeah, and I think the other couple points with him, just real quick, is that he's still on a rookie contract, so he's really cheap. And for a guy that's shown starting ability at cornerback to be that cheap, like that factors in for sure. Like you don't want to cut a guy like that.
Right.
And they also have new coaches. Like he's got a new position coach, a new defensive coordinator.
Right.
That's going to yeah, like Matt LaFleur's here and Goody's still here, and they're evaluating him too. But like new corner coach, new defensive coordinator, like that can help his case, right? Like maybe they find a better fit. They see things that they like in him. Maybe they can clean up some of his issues for him where the previous staff couldn't.
Right.
And so that could be a positive for Valentine too. So just a couple of things to keep in mind.
No doubt. No, and those are good points to make about, why would a guy who's, got a few years in the league now, he's 24, he's, this is his fourth year. So still relatively young, but experienced as far as how many years he's been in the league. There's a lot of reasons to believe he can still get better with new coaches. He's only 24 years old. He's still getting stronger and faster. So yeah, those are good points made. So some names to watch for in the bottom half of the cornerback room. We mentioned Kamal Hayden. We got Damani Jackson. Our Showers points out Damani Jackson wasn't good in college, bad tape, erratic, not good. He's got an uphill battle, I will say. And I was left not impressed with him at the Shrine Bowl as well. Now, I won't say that I watched every one of his reps. So if somebody wants to correct me on that, say I'm out of line, great, go for it. But what I did see was just not impressive. I wouldn't say he was bad. It's just a guy like that coming out of Alabama, you want to see some flashes and some reason why he's better than others. And you didn't see it. So I think he's a fun one to talk about. But yeah, realistically, he's got an uphill battle. So some other names, Marlon Jones is one, rookie out of Vanderbilt. Let's see here. Where was the other one that I didn't? MJ Devonshire. So I'm not sure exactly who he is. Somebody that I picked up, I guess. And then Shamar Bartholomew. So there's a few names there at the bottom of the cornerback room list that will have a say in maybe some of those bubble position battles there for who gets cut, who ends up on the practice squad. But yeah, the top definitely seems certain it's going to be Nixon, Valentine, St. Juste, and Cisse. So, you've got, as far as the top 4 goes, it's not terrible. You can't be mad about it. You may not love Nixon, may not love Valentine, but depth like St. Juste and a pick like Cisse is not a terrible position to be in, especially if they all end up looking pretty good and you're a legitimate 4 deep at cornerback. That's a good position to be in, and you're certainly within reach of that. For the reasons that you stated there, Tim. New coordinator, new position coach. These guys take a step forward every offseason, learning a little bit about themselves and getting the conditioning and the strength work in and all that. So, there is reason to believe that all 4 of those guys could take steps forward and look pretty good. And then you've got a good problem on your hands and good cornerback depth. So it'll be interesting. I think that, the one that I would call out as far as like, hey, bubble could be at risk. Kamal Hayden, man, if he stays on PUP and some of these other guys start to look good, he may find himself cut pretty quick. So that'll be one to watch, but definitely an important position battle there. And then, we could just go down the list of every position. The linebacker position is one. I don't know that I'm looking for a real battle to learn something, except maybe between Isaiah McDuffie and Tyron Hopper. Like, I don't know what the heck is going on with Tyron Hopper. I don't know that anybody does, but he's one that I'd be watching for on the bubble. Like, at this point, he's going into year 3. They just gave McDuffie an extension, so it's not like they're ready to move on from that guy. Hopper might be in trouble. He might be on his way out if he doesn't look good in camp. That one could be an interesting one. So
it could be.
I'm going to be watching that between those two. But I mean, Edge Cooper and Zaire Franklin are your starters at that position. Right. I don't think there's any question about that. And then Nick Neiman seems like more of a special teams guy, but had some decent reps at linebacker before. Christian Welch as well. TJ Quinn is another one that we have here on the roster. I'm not sure where he falls. He's a rookie out of Louisville. So, the linebacker position to me could be a little bit interesting with Tyron Hopper and McDuffie.
Well, I think they show you who's ahead of who in that by signing McDuffie to the extension they did. I think he's linebacker 3, right? Like, if something happens to Franklin or something happens to Cooper, McDuffie's the guy. Like, he's ahead of Hopper. I don't know if Hopper's I'll say he's on the bubble. Like, I don't think he's guaranteed a spot. I think they more than likely probably give him another year, but I could definitely see a scenario where they cut him, or maybe even they try to flip him to another team for, someone else that they want to take a look at, or, if they could even get a late round draft pick for him, something like that. But yeah, I mean, he's been behind for 2 years now. I thought he looked better last year in the preseason, and the training camp actually looked kind of promising, and then never really got on the field. And then it was weird. Like, he played that Minnesota game at the end of the year, which was a throwaway game and all, but he didn't play well in it at all. And then he had to pick, wasn't it the playoff game he had to pick? He had to come in. They had some injuries at linebacker, and he had an interception. And was like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
They throw him on the field in the playoff game because out of necessity, they had to. There was injury, and he makes a big time play in a playoff game. So it's like, this guy's been nowhere to be seen, for 2 years. Like, he's not getting playing time, and then put him in a big spot like that and he makes a play. So I don't know what to make of him, other than it's been a disappointment for a 3rd round pick to be 2 years in and he's behind in the depth chart. I mean, they go out and they get Zaire Franklin to replace Cooper, replace Quay Walker. Like, Hopper was never even in discussion for that. Now, McDuffie, they're committing another year or 2. He's buried right now. I mean, he's their 4th linebacker. And then when you factor in Neiman, Christian Welch, who are, they're special teams guys, but at least one of those 2, maybe both of them make the team. Certainly the special teams maybe changes a little bit this year because Bisaccia is not there. So maybe they're looking for different things, or there's not the favorite special teams guys that Bisaccia had. They don't carry as much weight, but Neiman or Welch, at least one of them is definitely making the team, if not both. And if they both make it, that might mean there's not a spot for Hopper. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does in the preseason games. Does he progress, or is he kind of just showing them what he's shown them for 2 years now? Because if it's more of the same, maybe he's not on that roster to start the season.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's what I'd be watching for here. Unfortunately, when you don't hear about guys, it's usually not a good sign. Now, sometimes you hear about guys for the wrong reasons, and it's a bad sign in an obvious way. In a situation like this, like you hit the nail on the head, man. When Quay Walker's gone, there's not even a thought that Tyron Hopper is the replacement, and the move for Zaire Franklin is kind of the obvious thing there. And the extension to McDuffie, I think, is the real big communication. Is like, no, Hopper's not. He's not even LB3 yet. Right? We're not even confident in him as the backup to our top two guys, and that to me is pretty damning. And then whenever you're starting to, so being on the bubble, you have to look around at other positions, right? It's not just the linebacker position and whether he beats out the other two. It's a matter of, well, if you have, let's say the receiver room is a really tight competition and you're trying to maybe you need to keep 6. Well, all of a sudden it's like, well, can we afford to let go of Hopper? Or the cornerback room is really heating up, and not only are the top 4 guys looking good, but 2 other guys are really showing some strength. And so you start looking around at these positions where if other guys at the bottom of the depth chart or the bottom half of the depth chart are starting to look good and showing potential and pushing for reps, all of a sudden that's your spot. It's not just linebacker. So I think there's several other positions where guys have a chance. As the edge rusher position, the cornerback room, D line, all of those positions I think could have a say in whether Hopper is a Packer in 2026. And I would say his seat is hot. And Showers has a good question here. Did you guys think Hopper was taken too high back in the 2024 draft? I remember that being a thing, but I didn't watch the linebacker tape. Yeah, I'll say I didn't know too much about him coming out. We were obviously doing draft stuff, so when they took Tyron Hopper, I didn't know a whole lot about him. I certainly thought it was a little too high. Peyton Wilson was the next linebacker taken after him by Pitt. He hasn't been sensational, but there's probably a case to be made that he would have been a better linebacker pick. Now, there's not the obvious, like some historical picks where they took what was the tight end's name, Stoneburner, right before Terry McLaurin. It's like that was a big swing and miss. You took this guy who didn't turn out at tight end, and you missed out on a premier wide receiver on the very next pick. There's no obvious guys like that where like a few picks later there was just this awesome player. So it's not a huge overdraft, I wouldn't say, but yeah, I think the way things are playing out, a 3rd round pick for a guy like Hopper definitely seems like a big swing and miss to me. And I don't know, would you disagree with that?
No, I agree. It was surprising at the time. Definitely didn't have him on the radar there in the 3rd round. And yeah, I mean, obviously there's still time, but we're 2 years in and he just hasn't been able to get on the field really. So clock's ticking real fast for him. And they brought in Franklin. It's going to be Franklin and Cooper. McDuffie's linebacker 3 now. Maybe he can outplay McDuffie in training camp and take that spot from him. But like even as linebacker 3, how much are you getting on the field for, right?
Yeah.
Unless something bad happens in front of you. So yeah, it was a weird pick too because they just taken Edgerrin Cooper in the 2nd round that year, right? And then you double up on Hopper when you already had Quay Walker. So it was like, okay, do they really need another guy?
Yeah.
And that shouldn't, sometimes he's your best available guy, you take him. But
right.
It was surprising at the time. And yeah, it hasn't worked out so far, but there's still time.
There is still time. Yeah, this definitely is an important training camp for him. He's not starting on the PUP list, so that's a good start for him. But yeah, so there's a case to be made. He was drafted too high. Not all draft picks are going to be a hit. We all know that.
Right.
But definitely, the 3rd round curse seems to have hit him for the Packers. And then, the other position battle that's going to be obvious to watch is going to be D-line. You've got, I'm talking more interior D-line now. You've certainly got Hargrave we talked about, and you got Devontae Wyatt, healthy. Those are your top two. I think it's pretty clear. Behind that, it gets real interesting. You got McClellan that a lot of people are very excited about. Then you've got your two rookies last year in Brinson and Stackhouse, and I think a lot of people, we want to see them turn out. They're big dudes out of Georgia. It's easy to want to see those guys play out. But they're big question marks, definitely big question marks. Yep. You got a couple of veterans in Ford and Jordan Riley. So, those guys, how much of a stabilizing force are they, or will they slide away into irrelevance? Certainly possible. So there's a lot of question marks on the D line after Wyatt and Hargrave for sure.
Yes.
It's going to be very interesting. Carl Brooks is a part of that. Some other names that are less talked about. One is Dante Barnett, Anthony Campbell, 6'6", 300 pounds. That's a big boy. Jaden Crometti. He's another one, could be interesting. So, there's a few names there at the bottom of the list, probably fighting for practice squad spots. But how that D-line group plays out is going to be very, very interesting, in my opinion. You certainly want to see McClellan show up and have a say in all of that. That would be great. But, I kind of look at that one similar to the pass rush group and probably even the cornerback group. High potential. I think there's high potential there. You got some big boys there. You got some experienced boys there. You got some, some flashes of talent there. You got your stabilizing vets, but the floor could be pretty ugly. That's the part where you look at this, go, ugh. We don't want to see a series of things go wrong here, because it could get ugly very quickly at the defensive tackle position, interior D line, if things don't go right. So, that'll be a position group to watch. Any thoughts you got on that one?
Yeah, I just think so much of it is going to rely on Devontae Wyatt and Javon Hargrave. Like, they have to be really good. They have to play a lot of snaps and be available every week too. And we've seen that Wyatt hasn't been able to do that throughout his career. So it's not a group that has depth. There's a ton of questions there. It could use at least one more, maybe even two more bodies there, as far as like rotational type of guys who have done it in the NFL. Because Carl Brooks is a guy, like, he played too many snaps last year and just didn't have much of an impact. He needs to play fewer snaps. He's fine as a, role player off the bench. That's fine. Stackhouse gave him virtually nothing. I mean, they were bringing guys in off the street to replace him. So I'm not counting on Stackhouse. Maybe he makes that jump and could solidify the nose tackle position. That would be great, but he's got a lot to prove. I think Brinson did some nice things. And again, in flashes, can he build on that? Like, I'm interested to see what he looks like, because I see some talent there with Brinson. I think he can, if he can put it together and get more consistent and just build his game, I think he can be somebody that's like in the mix as far as part of that rotation on the interior. And then McClellan, I do like McClellan, but a rookie, again, like, how ready is he going to be able to play in the trenches? I don't know. And I'm not like really counting on that from day one. I think maybe he can grab, a rotational role early in the season, but I don't think he's going to be ready to play major snaps. So, and after that, they had Jonathan Ford around for a couple years, let him go. Then they brought him back at the end of last season after he'd been with the Bears. I don't know. I don't know if Jonathan Ford really, I don't think he really gives you much, but maybe he's gotten better. And then he's coming off the torn Achilles. Like, he wasn't put on PUP on Monday, but I can't imagine he's going to be ready. I mean, he tore his Achilles in December of last year. So to me, this is a room that could really use another body. It was the position all off season that I thought they needed a nose tackle at. They never really got that. I like McClellan, but he's a third round rookie that's going to need time. So, like, that was a miss to me in the offseason, was not adding someone else that can Play the nose tackle position, because you don't want Hargrave doing it too much. He needs to be playing tackle, rushing the passer, not eating up blockers in the middle. And they need somebody that can play that nose spot. And they weren't able to find that in the offseason.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, and you just have to wonder how much does the influence of Jonathan Gannon have in that, and what the front office assessment is of what they have, because sometimes it looks different. You know, what we
Yeah.
see on the outside and what they see on the inside it could be very, very different. So we spent a lot of time on this episode talking about the camp battles on defensive side of the ball. Real quick, on the offensive side, there are less things to focus on. There's a lot more things that are already decided. I would say, the receiver room, you're probably everybody behind Savion Williams is fighting for position. But as far as that Savion Williams, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, those guys, they're there. They're gonna be there. I don't think any of them. I just don't think there's a lot of movement to be had there. I think they are who they are. You know the skill set you have, and hopefully they're getting better as that skill set and that player and that role that they have defined within the offense. But I'll put notice on Bo Melton. When it comes to who's on the bubble, some of these younger guys, if they start looking good in camp, Bo Melton might be expendable. Sky Moore certainly is going to have something to say about that for the receiver 5 position. And, and then behind him, you've got some names that people are aware of and excited to see and definitely could make some noise. Isaiah Nayer is one, Brendan Rice, Will Shepard, J. Michael Sturdivant from Florida, rookie. There's a lot of people that really liked him coming out of this draft class. So, I don't think Bo Melton is a lock on this roster. I think he's going to really have to fight for his roster life here. But everything above that it seems pretty well settled to me. The tight end room is an interesting one. You certainly everyone healthy. You can pretty much assume Kraft and Musgrave is 1 and 2. But if Musgrave is out for any extended period of time, I know that they like Wiley. But Luke Lachey and RJ Maryland might have a say. Those guys come out and start making plays. It could get interesting in the bottom half of the tight end room. And then when the O-line comes around, this was the one I really wanted to kind of comment on. There's been a lot of talk. We talked a lot about the O-line this offseason. I'm not really interested in the competition in the O-line outside of Yager Burton. We want to see this O-line do well. We want to see the best 5 be the best 5, right? You want to see Jordan Morgan become the franchise left tackle. You want to see Sean Ryan be a good center. You want to see Belton be a good right guard. You want to see what we talked about at the beginning of the show, right? You want to see Banks come out and actually be a good left guard as much as you're paying him, and not be hurt. So that one's going to be an interesting one. But I'm not really interested in the competition of it. Like, unless there's a guy like a Yager Burton who's coming from the lower depths of the depth chart and forcing the coaches to get him on the field because he's playing so well, I don't want to see competition here. I want to see those top guys be the top guys. That's really what I'm more interested in here.
I think the competition is more in spots like 7 through 9 with the offensive line. Like, I think they have 6 guys. Your starting 5 and Burton are making this team, barring major injury or something crazy happening that we hope doesn't happen. And then I think Kennard is in a pretty good spot to make the team, but I don't think he's a lock. Like, I can see a world in where they cut him or maybe they trade him. But I think he's in a good position if he can show versatility like he's capable of showing, like we saw a little bit of last season. So I think he's in a good spot. But then it's after that where it's like, who else is making this team? Like, Jacob Monk's been around for a couple years now. Like, I mean, what do you see there? Like, he hasn't developed enough, and he seems to be only a center. And if he's only a center, like, if he can't hold up a guard, I don't see how he can make this roster if he's center only as a backup at this point. But he's in the mix. Maybe he maybe he comes in the third year and he's a better player and can grab a spot, but like certainly he's got to earn it. John Williams, who was a 7th-round pick last year, was hurt all year, complete unknown. Like you have no idea what you're getting in that. And then after that, it's a bunch of guys that were either on the practice squad last year or undrafted guys. They have some interesting undrafted guys, Josh Gesky and Dylan Wade. Brant Banks is another dude who was on the practice squad all of last year. He actually looked good in training camp. They brought him up I think he was in the Dallas game, and he was one of the guys that screwed up the protection on the blocked extra point. But he was around. He was on the practice squad. So like, there's some guys. Travis Glover was on this roster 2 years ago, and then he had the injury last year and in training camp missed the entire season. He's one to watch because I think he has some potential. He had some believers in that building last year, and then he got hurt in the preseason, missed the entire year. Big dude. Can he play tackle and guard? I think if he can show some versatility, that'll go a long way. But I think you get past Burton and maybe Kennard, and it's a complete unknown. And I know we may be talking about, your 7th, 8th, 9th offensive lineman, but there's a good chance one or two of those guys are going to have to play a little bit for you next year, or this year. So I'm interested to see like how that all shakes out. But I think the starting 5, barring injury, and we already have Aaron Banks missing time, I think those are going to be your 5 guys. It's just a matter of like how the depth is going to shake out behind them.
Yeah, I'd agree. And that's why I'm not really – I wouldn't put this as a position battle that I'm looking forward to. When it comes to those others we talk about, like edge and corner, I'm looking forward to those because you aren't sure who's going to come out, but you want to see competition breed success. So you want to see these guys go at it and the best come out. That's not what I want to see here on the O-line. I mean, I want to see the best guys come out for sure, but if you've got guys – if there's a legitimate competition at left tackle for Jordan Morgan and insert next guy, like that's a problem. That's not good. It's not a good sign. If there's legitimate competition for starting center, it's probably not a good sign. Sean Ryan should probably be running away with that, unless Yager Burton's just that good at center. Maybe that's the case. But it looks like he's going to have reps at guard. If you have that kind of competition, to me, in my opinion, it's not a good sign. And that's not what you want to see. You want to see the best guys be the best guys. And in those other positions, we don't know who those best guys are yet. You don't know who's going to emerge there. So the O-line, I'm a little nervous. I'm looking forward to those guys being good. I'm not looking forward to position battles there. Maybe more so looking forward to the one-on-ones against the D-line and how those go. But yeah, so my attention, in training camp is probably a lot more on the defense than it is on the offense. There's also less changing on the offense. We talk about the defense. Obviously, you've got Gannon, but you got, new position coaches in certain spots. So there's definitely a lot of reason to look at certain things and go, okay, this could change. This guy could get better. This could happen. That's not the case on the offense. It's the same system. Obviously, LaFleur, you still got Stenovich at OC. You still got Butkus at O-line coach, with the same O-line influence from Stenovich. So, nothing's changed about what these guys are going to be coached to do. And philosophically speaking, none of that's changed. So if the inputs aren't good and that's why somebody's not as good as they could be, that hasn't changed and it's not going to change. The inputs are going to be the same. So that's not what you want to see. And even on the O-line, there's, in my opinion, less development. I think that, maybe some of these guys get a little bit stronger. Maybe they get their feet a little bit quicker. But physical development, I think, for the most part, these guys are who they are. Their success hinges on technique and probably a lot of mindset, a lot of intangibles, things that you can't just see on paper. So that's why I wouldn't say that this is a position battle I'm looking forward to in training camp. I want to just see these guys be good. That's really all it comes down to. And I could probably say that across the offense. I'm not looking forward to receiver position battles. I'm looking forward to the top guys being the top guys. The only position battles I'm probably looking forward to are the running back position behind Josh Jacobs. I think that's going to be a very interesting one. And there's a lot of potential there.
I think the running back room, if all the running backs are available, It's pretty straightforward. It's going to be Jacobs, Lloyd, and Brooks. Now, if one or two or hell, three of them aren't available,
Yeah, right.
then Brooks is coming in with an injury now. Then it's interesting. Then who steps up? And that's a big question mark. But I think if they're all available, I don't think there's much of a competition. It's going to be the three guys. It's going to be Jacobs, Lloyd, and Brooks. It's just a matter of availability, which has been obviously the main thing with Lloyd. He has not been available.
Right.
And Jacobs has an off the field situation that is still very much up in the air. So that's the unknown as far as, the running back room goes.
Yeah. So my attention, at least at the beginning of training camp, obviously football starts and things change. I'm going to be focused more on the defensive side of the ball for sure. Watching those position groups we talked about. But speaking of the defensive side of the ball, we got some news today, and there's a new crush on Packers Twitter. Vita Vea asking for a trade out of Tampa Bay. And there's some people suggesting the Packers should go be part of this conversation. Now, seems like an expensive player to me. If they were out on some other guys this offseason because of the price. Tim, could you envision a scenario where Vita Vea becomes a Packer and you get what you were wishing for in terms of investment on the D-line?
I mean, if I was the GM, I'd be in on it, but I'm not. Do I envision the Packers? No. I think maybe they like him as a player, but I believe the cap hit's $18 million. He's 31 years old. This is all coming about because his contract's up at the end of the season, so he's been negotiating with the Bucs. They haven't come to an agreement. This could be a part of that negotiating ploy, is to go out and demand a trade and put pressure on the Bucs, and then he ends up with a new contract with the Bucs. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe he gets traded. We'll see. But you're going to trade for him. You got an $18 million cap hit, so they're not going to want that. So they're going to have to redo the deal. They're going to have to extend them, basically. So what are you trading as far as competition or compensation? And then you're extending him as well. And he's 31 years old. Yes, he's still a good player, but he's 31. So you're going to pay a nose tackle for age 31, 32, 33 seasons. I just don't see the Packers giving up whatever I don't know what the trade compensation would be. Is it a second round pick, third, fourth? What's the compensation? And then giving him a new contract at that age. That goes against so many things that the Packers do. But he is still a good player. It would be such a good move for this defense and fill a huge need at defensive tackle. He'd be your nose tackle, and it would slot Hargrave into the role that he should be in. It would help Wyatt. It would, then McClellan, you don't need McClellan to give you much as a rookie. Carl Brooks can play fewer. Everybody just falls into place after that. And then he's a monster still in the middle on top of it. And it helps your entire defense, especially the tackle room. But I don't think it's realistic at all for the Packers.
The price seems pretty high. I don't know. Maybe they can come through and prove that the salary cap is indeed fake, as some would suggest.
I would love it, but I don't see Goody doing it.
Yeah, I don't either. And so if you guys want any kind of hope about this, I'll say this: the last few things that we have seen as completely unrealistic and uncharacteristic have actually come to fruition. And they paid Josh Jacobs, top of the market running back, to come in, which I never would have guessed that they would pay a top of the market running back as a free agent. They did the same thing with Xavier McKinney, which didn't seem as far-fetched as Josh Jacobs, but still they paid a top of the market free agent, which is very uncharacteristic. But more recently, they went out and they got Micah Parsons. Big trade, probably the biggest trade in franchise history as far as compensation goes, and maybe even impact. But so for what that's worth, those are big moves that they did make that I would have bet a lot of money against. Certainly was rooting for the Micah Parsons thing, but to believe that was truly real was pretty far-fetched. So the last few things that have seemed far-fetched and uncharacteristic have actually happened. So
And
there you go.
They took a
There's
first round. Don't forget they took a first round receiver too.
And they took a first round receiver.
They've been doing a lot of things, I guess, over the last few years that aren't.
Yeah, a lot of uncharacteristic things have actually come to fruition. So there you go. There's your hope, your little glimmer of hope that Vita Vea could become a Packer. But I would still categorize it the way that you did, Tim, that very, very unlikely. The odds are probably quite low. So all right. So the next time you guys hear from us, training camp will have started, kicked off, and we will have real football to report on. Might even have some, more extension news. I think Tucker Kraft is probably getting closer to the extension. There were some comments about that last week that that could happen during camp, or the goal is for it to happen before the start of season. So hopefully we have that to report on soon. But the most important thing is we got real football right in front of us. It's here. We've made it through the drought of the offseason.
Finally.
So next Monday, come on back, y'all, and come hang out with us. 9:30 p.m. Central, streaming live, talking Pack, going through training camp updates and seeing how those position battles have kicked off. If y'all enjoyed this episode, please spike that like button for us. Jump on over to the YouTube page, type in Packers Talk Network, and hit subscribe on that channel. We got some other great podcasters as well. No Huddle guys, Limps, all that. So definitely check us out. Hit that subscribe button and help us find other Packers fans and help them find us. And enjoy your training camp week kickoff. Packers fans, real football is here. And as always, go Pack, go.